Hi my friends, welcome to the channel English Professionally, and we are going to talk about most important and top prepositional phrases with such important prepositions as on, for, in, at, by, out, to, under, with. So really these prepositions are so important, and so you look at several pictures or tables, and really it's extremely important actually in terms of your grammar and speaking skills. Okay, so you see that we use some prepositional phrases with a certain preposition, and we are going to have a look at all these extremely useful phrases. So you know that you can listen and repeat. So on a diet, on a business trip, on a trip, on a cruise, on a journey, on average, on pension, on a regular basis, on foot. You know that there are different sources and you may find different lists of prepositions and prepositional phrases, but to my huge disappointment, I mostly meet uncommon prepositional phrases, which are very rarely used, and I decided to choose the most important, the most common prepositional phrases which are really very common among native speakers of English. Yeah, and you can also use it in your speaking, in your speech. Okay, for ages, for breakfast, for dinner, for lunch. Yeah, you know, students often make mistakes here. Remember, for breakfast, for dinner, for lunch. For example, for instance. It's another way of saying for example. So you can say for example or for instance. So basically it's the same. For a change, for a long time. In a hurry, in addition to, in advance, in short, in brief. So it's the same as in short, so you can see in short or in brief, in comparison with, and sometimes we meet in comparison to, so it's also possible. In conclusion, in detail, at the end of something, at the beginning of something. So I hope you remember that we say in the end, in the beginning, but at the end of something, at the beginning of something, if there is something after end or beginning, so we need to use at the bottom of, at the top of, at all costs, at any rate, at first sight, at hand. For example, do you believe in love at first sight? So what does it mean, love at first sight? It means that when you see a person and you instantly like him or her. So it's a very special feeling. Okay, next, let's continue. So there are more phrases with on, for, in, and at, and then we'll talk about some other prepositional phrases and some other prepositions. So on good terms, on bad terms, which means that you have good relations or bad relations. On fire, on paper, on strike, on the brink of, or on the verge of. So these are similar phrases. On holiday or on vacation. You see similar phrases too. On the whole. Good. Okay, what about for? So you see it's a yellow column. So for a while, it means for some time. For the sake of. For some reasons, or for no reason, or for a certain reason. For sure. For certain. Okay, let's look at the next column. So different phrases with in. Okay, so in fact, in reality, in general, in vain, in the beginning or in the end. So we talked about it in the beginning and in the end, but if you see of, we say at the beginning of something, at the end of something. Okay, in spring, in summer, in autumn. Okay, in spring, in summer, in autumn, and in winter, of course, in winter. Right. Okay, let's look at the red column. So different prepositional phrases with at. So at last, at least, at the moment, at midday, at midnight, at noon, at the same time, at school, at work, at university. Right, you know that there are different prepositions, and we have already talked about on, for, in, at, and we'll look at by, out, to, under, and with quite soon. But if we look at the statistics, so we see more prepositional phrases with in and at. So there are more than 2 pages, so there is one more page. So in, let's continue looking at phrases with in. So in other words, in love, in any case. So in any case means at any rate. So I think that you remember this phrase, at any rate. So is the same as in any case. In a good mood, in a bad mood, in terms of, in search of, in due course, in theory, in practice, in doubt. And some more phrases with at. At the weekend. So we say at the weekend, but if we look at American English, we often hear on the weekend. It's also possible. At stake, at risk. Okay, very good, my friends. So I believe that we see most phrases, yeah, actually a great number of phrases with on, for, in, and at, but there are some other prepositions which are also worth of our attention, and I'm talking about such prepositions as by, out, to, under, and with. We often hear them, when native speakers use them quite naturally, and I also believe that it's a good idea to start using them in our daily conversations too. Okay, by. So, by mistake, by heart, by accident, by chance, by the way, by air, by sea, by land, out of breath, out of control, out of date, out of curiosity, out of order, out of pity, out of stock. To a certain extent, to a certain degree, to my surprise, under no circumstances, under arrest, under construction, under pressure, under suspicion, with the help of, with intention of, with success. Okay, so you see very important prepositional phrases, and I believe that these prepositional phrases aren't only for beginners, but they're also for pre-intermediates, intermediates, upper intermediates, and there are some phrases for advanced too. So really, I think it's a good idea to talk about these phrases. And I'd like to tell you one thing, my friend, that if you look at English prepositions, right, so you need to remember the following, that first of all, you need to know their basic meanings. So first of all, you need to know their basic meanings and phrases, okay? What I mean, really, what do I mean? For example, mean means inside, and we say in the box, it means inside the box, yeah? I hope that's clear. So it's about its basic meaning, but we usually see more than one meaning. For example, so we say in with what? So with months, like in April, in June, with years, or with some typical or common phrases like in the morning, okay, in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, in the evening, and so on. I hope that's clear. Right, so it's the first step. So you need to know some basic information about each of these prepositions. Then you need to know dependent prepositions. Dependent prepositions. I mean that it's, for example, adjective plus preposition. For example, adjective plus preposition. And if we are talking about this example, so adjective plus in. For example, we say interested in, yeah, interested in, okay? Then you need to know some, not only, adjectives, you need to know verbs plus prepositions. So verb plus preposition. So what English verbs you can remember? Or can you remember? Yeah, it's a question where you need to use in after this verb preposition. So succeed in. For example, I succeeded in passing that exam. So nouns, adjectives, verbs, also nouns and adverbs. Nouns and adverbs plus prepositions. Okay? For example, delay in, decline in, and so on. Okay, it's the first important step. And number three, last but not least, it's about prepositional. It's about prepositional phrases. Okay, it's a very important thing. You need to know it, and we have already talked about. And number 4, my friend, and there is number 4. I'll write it here. You'll see it at the top of the slide because it's also very important. It's about phrasal verbs. Really, phrasal verbs like give in, take in, and so on. So if you really want to know English prepositions perfectly, so first of all, you need to know its basic meaning, or their basic meanings and phrases like in, inside, in the box, some typical situations when we use them, for example, with months, years, and some typical phrases like in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening. Secondly, you need to know dependent prepositions, so adjectives plus prepositions like interested in, if we are talking about this preposition in verbs plus preposition like succeed in or succeed in doing something, nouns and adverbs plus prepositions. So there are different lists with these prepositions like delay in, decline in. So number 3, prepositional phrases. It's what we were talking about. So these prepositions really are also worth of our attention. And finally, my friends, don't underestimate the importance of phrasal verbs. Pay attention to phrasal verbs too, because they are almost everywhere and they are very common in a natural English speech or conversation. Okay, my friend, I think that this guidance is quite useful, and these tips are worthwhile too. Thanks a lot, and I hope you enjoyed these lessons. Thank you, my friends. Thanks a lot.